This is the inside of the airplane. You can see that the panel is quite full. We have a GPS on the yoke, which is hardwired. All of your switches that you need, your magneto switches, and your fuel switches, your engine prime and start are down here. The transponder is here by my knee. There's also a ILS VOR glide slope head here for the number 2 radio, which is this King nav system here, which has a DME in it. And then the number 1 glide slope ILS head for the number 1 nav radio is right here. You have your standard cluster of instruments. They're in the configuration that they should be for a standard scan. You also have a front course or back course ILS switch. You have a nav1 or nav2 ILS, or excuse me, autopilot switch. And the autopilot is right here. It is the Cessna Nav 800 autopilot, which was the upgraded, the best autopilot that Cessna made. It's the same autopilot that went in their Conquest, their turbocharged airplane. This particular airplane was actually owned at 2 different times in its history. You can see that it was owned by Western Skyways, the engine rebuilder manufacturer. And I don't know if they installed this autopilot, but someone upgraded the autopilot to Nav 800. They normally would have come with a Nav 400 autopilot. Your heading bug is here, and it does have a master on-off. There's also on the stick an on-off switch. It has altitude hold, nav hold. It has a turn control, and also an up and down pitch control. The airplane comes with a Shaden altitude management system. This is excellent to help a pilot not break altitude assignments. It also alerts you in route if you get more than 200 feet off of your altitude assignment. It alerts you when you approach your destination airport to do a gear check, which I think is very important for pilots to have something that tells them to do a gear check. It also has the 3M strike finder. I like the display on this strike finder. It tells you light, heavy zones of lightning, and it functions extremely well. I've used it myself. It functions well. The airplane comes with a full audio panel that will allow a pilot and a co-pilot to talk or to listen to different frequencies, different radios. You have 2 different communication radios, and you have up here your system for all of your lights, for your prop heat, for your cabin heat. These have an external heater that and the heater controls are here that functions very well. Because these are high altitude airplanes, they can go to 30,000 feet. It's nice to have a good heater in them. Your engine instruments are over here. Manifold pressure, because the airplane of course is turbocharged, and this airplane gives you a full turbocharged power up to 16,000 feet before the wastegate closes, and a nice fuel flow meter for both engines. I find it's very easy to sync the 2 needles. I've also got the power quadrant set up to where everything in flight is paralleled, so that you don't have split controls when you're in flight. They're all paralleled. I'd also like to point out the EDM 700 engine monitor and analyzer, which is for both engines. This is a very important instrument. I won't fly a twin engine airplane without having engine monitors. It gives you much more reliable data on your engines. This particular monitor monitors every engine, every cylinder in flight, so you get a readout on your exhaust gas temperatures on each engine, and also cylinder head temperature on each engine. You can pick, right now I have it on number 3, which is normally the hottest exhaust gas temperature, and so I will run that at about 1400 degrees in level flight, and that gives me a burn of about 28 gallons an hour and a true airspeed of about 185 knots. But it also shows you the turbine inlet temperature. So your turbines have a limit of about 1700 degrees, and you don't want to exceed that. Normally your turbine inlet temperature, if you're running your hottest cylinder at an EGT of 1400, your turbine inlet temperature is usually down around 1350, so you're significantly below that. And not only are you reading the EGTs, gives you a digital readout on the cylinders you pick, but it also gives you a cylinder head temperature. So you're watching that your cylinder heads, and they run very cool in this airplane, are running about 300 degrees, 320 degrees in flight. And so you get a constant readout on that. If you have a cylinder that starts to go critical for any reason, it starts to flash. That whole line will start to flash and tell you that you've got a problem with that cylinder. Normally you'll enrich in the fuel, or that would be one of the first steps you'd take to correct a possible problem. But you're going to get a reading on it. You have 2 different fuel gauges. I think that's nice. You don't have to switch those. You have 2 different fuel gauges for your main fuel tanks, which are, you're looking at 50 gallons each, 100 gallons, and 15 gallons each in your auxiliary tanks. You have your prop temperature here, which is telling you in its cycles when you're heating your props, your normal gyro suction, your oxygen tank, which I mentioned is very large in this plane. It has 6-place oxygen, and so that gives you, of course, your readout on your oxygen. And you have this cluster of instruments, which again, everything in this airplane functions properly. I recently sent this instrument out because the cylinder head temperature wasn't working, and even though I had it down here, that's me. I want everything in my plane to work, and so I sent that instrument out. You can see that it looks newer than the other one. It's been rebuilt, and your oil temperatures, oil pressures, and cylinder head temperatures work in those instruments as well. It does have an elapsed time clock, DAVCON clock. Also has your kind of World War II wind-up clock, and it has a stereo up here which is tied in to the intercom system, so you can select it for the pilot or for everyone. Oxygen ports here, and here it's got reading lights at every seat, and the airplane, you can see, is very roomy and extremely comfortable. Your fuel tanks are down right below me here. We also have a backup mic here, and then I use a headset, and noise attenuating headset makes your flight very comfortable. You get quite a nice sound out of the twin-bladed props versus the 3-bladed props. Most people don't realize that the twin-bladed props are actually more efficient than the 3-bladed props, and they have a deeper sound. We also have visors, and the windows, though, in the airplane are tinted quite dark. It does have an ADF in it. The ADF is down here. It also has a clock, so you still have your ADF indicator in it also. I think